Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Adam White, and it is time for the October Government Legislative Affairs update. I am trying something new with the Facebook app and Instagram. They tell me that it's supposed to be on both at the same time, so that's hopefully it looks like it is working. I've got a couple people already joining in. So if you are looking at this on Instagram, please give me a comment. Make sure that's actually working for me tonight. And so I want to make sure that that's working. And also with Facebook, it's supposed to be doing it all at the same time. So we'll see. So my setup is a little different tonight. First of all, I want to say hello to everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight as I got a list of things here on my phone for my notes to make sure that we cover this evening. But hopefully you are settled in and all your chores are done and ready for winter, because it is getting cold up here in the interior. Obviously not near as cold as it's going to get, but we were in the teens this morning, above zero. The trumpeter swans have been flying over all afternoon today, and if you're like me, you have to stop and watch them. It's an incredible thing to see these birds migrating, thinking about how far they go, their range, the way they use aerodynamics to do all that. And as pilots and as aviators, it's just an incredible thing to watch. So that's what my day has been, a little bit distracting, trying to get some last minute things done here around the hangar, ready for the snow, which is in the forecast. So hopefully it won't be too bad or too deep, and we'll have a few more days of fall to enjoy. So again, thanks to everybody for joining in tonight. A few things I want to cover. With hunting season over for the most part, folks are settling in for winter. I want to make sure that I remind everyone, this is something that I was told to do when I first started flying in Alaska more than 25 years ago. When you change your landing gear, change your survival gear. So I want to just make that little bit of a plug for you tonight. When you come off of floats and go to wheels, you need different things in your survival kit. When it comes to getting ready to go on skis, probably need to reevaluate what you're carrying and make sure you're carrying the proper things that are going to keep you going. So this is a great time in this shoulder season to go through and review all your safety and survival equipment that you carry. Make sure some of the things that are have expiration dates are current. Make sure things are actually working. Probably the biggest thing is make sure you know how to actually use what it is that you're carrying. I've read through a lot of accident reports, and there was equipment on board on some of these crashes. The folks just didn't know where it was, or they didn't know how to use it, and it would have been very helpful if they'd been trained a little bit. So take this time during the shoulder season to get better prepared, get ready for winter. We spend a lot of time making sure our airplanes are ready. Let's make sure that we are ready as pilots and make sure our equipment that we carry is ready. So moving on to some government legislative affairs type things. Anchorage. There's been some proposed changes in the aircraft tax in Anchorage, and we are following that very closely. The initial rounds of that, it appears that the aircraft tax, the property tax that's assessed on aircraft in Anchorage is going to change. For privately owned Part 91 activities, there's a chance your property tax may go away on your aircraft. We're watching that very closely. The unfortunate thing is that the commercial operators are going to have an increase in their taxes on their aircraft. Several reasons why this has been thrown around. Probably the biggest one that's gaining the most traction from folks I talk with is that the municipality of Anchorage doesn't tax other recreational vehicles, and yet they tax aircraft. So if folks are having an airplane that they use to go out to their hunting camp or their recreational cabin, they spend time with their family enjoying the great outdoors of Alaska. How is that any different than your boat? How is that any different than your four-wheeler, your snow machine? But yet the municipality of Anchorage has been taxing aircraft for a very long time. So we'll keep tracking that, keep following that, and right now I'm not sure that we need to make any comments, but other than to possibly support that measure. We do need to be careful, though. We need to be aware that the commercial side of the House is going to have an increase in their taxes if this goes through. So we'll have to follow this closely to make sure that that's not an undue burden on those folks. Some other things that I've been looking at, you know, the COVID relief for the FARs, SFAR 118, the special FAR that came out many months ago, has had a couple of revisions. The FAA has gone back and extended some of those deadlines that were a part of that special FAR, but when they've done that previously, they just bumped it out another 3 months. Well, this time they only bumped it out 2 months for some of those things. So please be careful and read that. Make sure you know what is happening when it comes to biannual flight reviews, flight instructor renewals, some maintenance issues, some currency requirements and all that. So if you have some questions about that, please reach out to me and I'll be able to help fill you in on some of those details, but we don't want to spend a lot of time on that tonight. Looking at some other things that have happened, there's a cross-section, a satellite-based cross-section of the weather. There's a test project going on right now. If you've read your transponder, it was mentioned in there. If you've seen some of these other advocacy updates, I've talked about it there as well. And you can go back and see what happens with what these cross sections. It's really pretty cool to see what happens with a satellite image, not only just the top of the clouds, which is what we've been very familiar with through the many years, but now with technology and better resolution, they're actually able to estimate where the bottoms of those clouds are and have a better idea of what those clouds are made out of. And so there's a test period right now for some of that. Go back and look at your transponder and we'll be able to get you pointed the right direction so you can look at those things and let us know what you think. There is a survey tied to that. The researchers there at NASA want to know what our opinion is, so please get in there and do that. Speaking of surveys, the Alaska Aviation System Plan, which is what it sounds like, it is a system plan. The FAA is contracted out to basically look and see what Alaska needs when it comes to a plan as to what to do for the state. So encourage you to go look and see what that's all about. I'm pretty sure we talked about that in an e-bulletin maybe a week or two ago to go in and in there. So looking at some of the comments, John, I see your comment there about the acting mayor. I did hear the news today that Mayor Berkowitz has resigned, and I'm not sure what that's going to do with the city assembly and other issues, or whether or not that's going to change that aircraft tax that has been proposed, that changed there. So Matt, I see your question there. If you are a member of the Airmen and you got your transponder, our newspaper, there's an article in there that Tom George wrote that talks about that. And if you're having a hard time finding it there, I think we talked about it in an e-bulletin. You can go back and search your emails. It's a pretty long, complicated address. I'm not going to give it to us out here because it's going to be hard to read. Matt, if you could send me a message afterwards, and I'll make sure to make sure you get that link so you can go in and look at that. So I hate to sound like the little boy who cried wolf, but here I go. I've been talking about this for many, many months, and for various COVID being one of them, there's been some delays in the temporary flight restriction down at the Clear Air Force Station, which is just on the north end of Windy Pass on the Parks Highway. They are building a new radar. The capabilities of that radar are pretty incredible. The publicly released information about that, what that radar can do, is pretty incredible. And so with that, though, because it's got a bigger pattern and a lot more energy that's being used, and so the safety areas need to be able to expand, to be able to keep us and our aircraft especially. The danger zone for humans is not near as far out as it is for electronics, and we do not want to let the smoke out of our radios. and other electrical systems in the airplane. So the restricted area at the Clear Air Force Station R2208, I believe it is going to be expanded. In the meantime, they've got to do some testing, and it takes a couple of years to get an airspace proposal like an expansion of a restricted area pushed through the FAA and all the different parts of the government. But yet they still need to protect that airspace while they're doing testing, so you can expect to see some TFRs pop up throughout the weeks, throughout actually probably 6 months or so, starting sometime in the first part of November. Again, that date keeps moving a little bit, but the information I have from both the FAA and the Missile Defense Agency is that early November is what they're talking about. So look for TFRs. You should always be checking with Flight Service about TFRs, not just in the summertime when we have TFRs, but there's VIP TFRs that pop up in Anchorage from time to time when high-level government officials come through, and there will be TFRs that pop up in Anderson, Clear area just north of Healy, south of Nenana, starting sometime in November for the next several months. Probably the last thing I want to talk about here before I do some housekeeping is last week was a safety summit hosted by Senator Sullivan and Representative Young. We had the FAA Administrator, Steve Dixon, there, a lot of other high-level FAA officials talking about safety in Alaska. I was a speaker on that safety forum. A very productive day. A lot of things were talked about. If you did not have a chance to see that, it is archived on the FAA's Facebook page as well as YouTube. It's my understanding that we're going to get it up on YouTube as well. Several hours worth of information, and so you can jump around a little bit if you want to, but a lot of good things that were talked about there. The Alaska Airmen Association was represented. I was there as a panel member, like I said, and talked about how Alaska uses parts of the national airspace system. And the issue that I brought up is that while, yes, we do use a lot of the same things that folks in the lower 48 use, infrastructure is a problem here, and that was another topic that was discussed. But the infrastructure we do have is aging, just like it is everywhere else in the United States, but we don't have near enough infrastructure, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword there. So things talked about, there's some hope that there'll be some changes with some of the things talked about. Funding is always an issue with the FAA, but with Administrator Dixon there, he was taking a lot of good notes and had some good comments there as he wrapped up the day. So ADSB was talked about, the need for more ground stations here in Alaska was talked about, weather radar, the need for weather radar was talked about, the need for more weather observation locations, and not just the whole METAR, AWOS, ASOS, you know, the gold standard that was mentioned in that safety meeting, which we all know is the, you know, that's what a METAR is. It's a very robust system that takes those readings. Not just any off-the-shelf weather station can do that. There is some talk of doing some things with the weather camera program to have what's called a VWAS, which is a verified weather observation, where it would not be able to be used for an instrument approach, but most of us don't need that. We just need to know what the weather is, and so this will be a way to be able to get more information into the system, and that's always a benefit. Another exciting thing about the weather camera program that was talked about is they are updating cameras. And right now they've got 3 or 4 test sites in the state right now where they're operating some 360-degree cameras and much higher resolution camera that you can then go and move and zoom in on a particular area that you want to see what the weather is, and not just the pre-aimed looking angles that other cameras have traditionally been. So this will be a great tool for us in the future. My understanding so far is the weather camera program is pretty excited about the capabilities of that system. They've had a few software glitches along the way that they've been working on, but they're making way on that, and so we can hopefully look to see in the near future cameras being updated. Now we know that typically doesn't happen in the winter, but so start looking for some updated camera sites with better technology. So there's always hope for more camera sites, some new places here and there. And the weather camera program has expanded now to the lower 48 and to Hawaii. So that's great news there as well. So that was a pretty quick rundown on all the things that I had on my list. One thing I do want to mention is that raffle tickets have started this month. So if you haven't seen what's going on with the Raffle Cub this year, Acme Cub there in Anchorage is refurbishing a Super Cub for us this year, and there's some actions happening on social media, so I encourage you to go look for those. If you haven't bought your ticket yet, you need to make sure that happens. If you've already bought a ticket, maybe you need to buy another one just to make sure you've got the winning ticket. So you buying those tickets, besides just the fun and the excitement of possibly winning an incredible airplane, it does help underwrite the activities of the Alaska Airmen's Association. And so raffle tickets is a large part of our budget. It's a large part of our income. Membership dues is another part of our membership, of our income stream. And so please make sure you renew your membership. Please make sure you set it up for auto renewal. And I know we're always having to credit cards because, you know, they get compromised or it just gets reissued from time to time. So make sure you keep your auto renew information current. So Linda, I see your question about when is Lake Hood going to freeze up. That's a good question. I can tell you that I live 300 miles and there is ice on all the ponds and standing water this morning. So Anchorage is usually a little bit further behind than we are, but it's not long. And so with that, though, speaking of cameras and Lake Hood, there's been a couple of questions about some things at Lake Hood that I've seen pop up about decorations for the holidays and things. We do have cameras on our building where you can look at Lake Hood. You can look at the traffic. You can look at the conditions of the water. So if you go to alaskaairmen.org, and you can see our cameras there and be able to kind of see what's happening in Anchorage. For those of you that kind of want to fly vicariously here in Alaska by looking at those cameras, it's always a neat thing. Hopefully tonight has worked out well. Like I said earlier in the very beginning, a lot of folks were probably not online at that point. Trying to do something different, combining the Instagram and Facebook feed. And so that's much easier for me to have one screen to look at and one camera in use than kind of bouncing back and forth like I'm watching a tennis match while I do this. So again, if you have any questions, if there's something that I have not talked about that you are interested in or that you think I need to know about, please get in touch with me. adam.white@alaskaairmen.org is my email address. My contact information is in the transponder as well as on our website. I do appreciate members reaching out to me and letting me know what's going on. I obviously can't be everywhere all the time. I do the best that I can, and I do rely on our members to keep me in the loop on a lot of things. So just another little tidbit on that. I'm only part-time with the Airmen's Association, and so having to balance a lot of other obligations and responsibilities, but do our best to make sure that we're tracking all the issues that are important to aviation here in Alaska. So with that, there's been a couple of issues that have popped up that we are following. We're and figure out where that fits. And while it's a very serious issues for a small number of our membership, there's some other issues that are greater impact on the whole membership as a larger group. So again, trying to do that balancing act, limited resources, limiting time, and trying to make sure we're making the best investment on both of those. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up this evening. Thank you for tuning in. And that kind of shows my age, I guess. We don't actually tune anything in anymore. But that kind of shows to my radio background as well, commercial radio. So thanks for joining me. I always appreciate with people. And again, if you have any questions or comments, send me a message, send me an email, and I'll be glad to help you find what you're looking for. So until next month, unless there's something more pressing that pops up that we need to do this before then, thanks for being here. and look forward to interacting with you. We'll see you.